This is the FRC Roundtable, coming to you all the way from Minnesota. Your host team 2052 Nightcrawler presents this weekly FRC gathering where FIRST robotics competition teams take cooperation off the field. Share your knowledge, give and get advice, solve a challenge, or celebrate what makes your team special. 3, 2, 1, go!
Welcome everybody to the Sunday night FRC Roundtable. My name is Scott Davis. I don't have a co-host with me tonight because I forgot to set one up. So let me read the intro myself. The FRC Roundtable is now open to all teams everywhere. We're no longer the Minnesota FRC Roundtable. So if you're listening online, watching the replay on YouTube or Spotify, please feel free to join us live. You must be 13 years or older to participate in the live call. And if you're comfortable, we ask that you please put your cameras on while you're speaking, but we do understand and want to respect people's privacy. And if you are interested in learning more about the Roundtable, signing up for the mailing list, or reading our complete privacy policy, you can learn more about the Roundtable at team2052.com/roundtable, all one word. We're going to skip the What's on the Wiki segment tonight because I don't think there's anything new to talk about. So every week we usually highlight something that we've added to the wiki to help share some of the inside baseball of what we do for our team. There's many pages out there right at this point, probably a couple of dozen. So feel free to check it out, but I don't have anything new to go over tonight for What's on the Wiki. All right, so let's jump right into it. Tonight's topic is another true roundtable. We had a fantastic roundtable last week. And I think what made it extra special was we had a ton of student input, and I really love that. And I really want to encourage so many students to continue to speak up and share their thoughts and their ideas. We really want to highlight the students on this call. So if you have things to talk about tonight and you were holding back, please don't. Jump into the conversation. Tonight's topic is going to be sort of what did we learn this week? What did we prototype? How do we feel things went? What did we learn? If you changed directions as a result of a prototype, or your design has shifted through some testing, we'd love to hear that if you're willing to share. If you have photos, if you have videos, if you have a CAD you want to share, by all means, we'll give you the screen share and you can go ahead and share anything you want to share. This is sort of that, it's the end of week one, what happened. So with that, the floor is open. Anybody want to kick us off and share how things went? Nobody did anything. Nobody actually went to robotics last week and stayed up all night, Sunday and Monday and Tuesday night doing CAD.
Yeah, it's been a pretty quiet week, really.
Okay, well, I'll share some info on Nightcrawler. I'm not going to share any photos or videos. I want my students to do that. So if they're not comfortable sharing that, then I'm not going to do that for them. But what Nightcrawler tested this week was we laser cut plates, 1/8 inch plates. We laser cut on the school's laser, and we stacked them 2 together on each side. So everything that we tested was 1/4 inch. And we, our CAD students CAD'd up plates for a shooter and for an intake. And that those things were assembled. I think it took about 2 meetings to assemble both of those, get them laser cut and assembled. And then we were shooting balls. We were shooting the fuel very fast with almost no accuracy. We tested a 2-wheeled shooter and a 1-wheeled shooter. The single-wheeled shooter was much more accurate than the 2-wheeled shooter was. We're still having a lot of struggle with accuracy, probably because we're feeding too fast. We don't have enough flywheel weight. We're still trying to dial in how to improve our accuracy for that. We did make a hub. We made a hub first with just hardboard to get it done as quickly as possible. And then our parents and alumni started the field build for week 0. And they made us a polycarb cone for the really quick and dirty hub that we put together just to have the right height. We started having human player practice for the hub, and we also were working on a spindexer to try to figure out how to spit the balls, run the balls through the shooter as quickly as possible. Did a couple of prototypes on a spindexer, and tried one with paddles, one with just a wheel. We've ordered brushes, and we're going to try what happens if we use the brushes on a spindexer. And we have really struggled to come up with any good ideas that we think will actually work for a level 3 climb. So I'm very curious to know if anyone has been catting level 3 climb or has some ideas on that. Right now, we're focusing purely on a very quick auto level 1 climb, and we may actually have 2 climbing mechanisms on the robot. We're not sure yet, but that's the Nightcrawler update. And if I have any Nightcrawler students that are in here or who join, they're more than welcome to share any videos that they have, but I'm not going to share for them. All right, Kai, get your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Kai from 2530. So we definitely have been doing a lot of those prototyping things, like working out some shooter and intake stuff, as well as we've been working on some ideas for climbers, but nothing solid. I personally haven't been very involved in some of the prototyping. I've honestly been working on some of the block CAD stuff, trying to like figure out some layouts and like coordinating with the different prototyping groups. Also, also one thing I've been working on is figuring out some of the stuff for the extending and retracting for intake and /or extendable hopper, so that maybe I can be prototyping that on Monday. Are you
Oh, in case it
muted?
gets lost. No, I don't think so. In case it gets lost in the chat, I'm curious what other teams are doing for shooters. Are you shooting single barrel, double barrel, triple, quadruple?
I was muted. You were probably talking to me, Kai. I was muted and I didn't realize it. Nightcrawler is currently looking at a single barrel shooter because we're going to do a turret. We don't plan to try to figure out how to do a double turret. So we're going to do a single barrel, single channel, single path for a turret shooter.
2530 is going the same way with a turret and single barrel.
So Ashby, sorry if I'm behind on this. We borrowed an idea from Mr. Scott Davis there this week. Basically, with the footprint of this robot and trying to make a robot that is not too big or too small. Well, I don't know if you can make a robot too small this season, but just trying to be able to fit, for climate mechanism wise, so that the driver can get in there and climb quickly. So Scott had this great idea. Scott, if you don't mind me sharing that, taking some caster wheels and creating them sort of modules in 2x4s. And it was really neat. The kids actually had fun with it, rolling down the hallway and throwing balls at each other. But
actually, I stole that idea from No Mythic. That's a Clay idea.
So that really gave us some clear idea on the how much stuff we can fit in our robot if we decided to go with that dimension. So it's one thing to CAD, 26 by 26 is another thing to CAD 27 by 27. But when you see it in front of you and like, okay, this is how much stuff I can fit in it, and kind of gets a little real for them too. So
I checked out for 5 seconds and I missed whatever you mentioned about stealing from No Mythic. What was that, Scott?
The chassis on casters.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm glad somebody else is doing that.
I'll
Yeah,
see if I can find a photo of that. That's a shared photo I will share because I was heavily involved in that, and that doesn't really share any secrets that our students are designing.
Cool. I'll see if I can find one of ours too to share.
Go right ahead. Nobody needs to go. You don't have to raise your hand. I don't want to have to call on people. Fire away. If there's a dead air, hop in.
I was just wondering about your earlier comment on how your team was testing the spindexers and how you were testing brushes, wheels, the other stuff. What do you think worked best for Team Nightcrawler?
Well, that's a good question. Paddles is definitely a no. I feel like we don't paddles with our testing, our early testing, and I think the paddles might have been too high. If we would have had the paddles low, maybe it would have been better. But there's a high chance of binding in the exit from the spindexer into the shooter, and so we aborted on our paddle plan. They tried paddles with something very rigid and then something that had a lot of flex to it, like it wasn't polycarb, but it was a piece of plastic that had some flex to it. And the thing that we had the most success with, I think, was a 6-inch Coulson. But the Coulson, 6-inch Coulson is a little bigger than what we want. It takes up more space than we want for our hopper, the bottom of our hopper. And so I did not notice if they were testing with compliant wheels or a solid wheel, but has the same durometer type of compliant rubber on their outside. I don't recall if I saw them testing that. I wasn't working with that group very much. I would say that I think that we're probably going to go with a solid wheel. I think is from what I saw being observed, I think we're probably going to go with a solid wheel. And then we'll probably extend up from that and put brushes above that. But we are going to test top to bottom brushes, the height of at least one ball, if not two balls, with like a door sweep type thing, but a little bit more sturdy than a door sweep. Something that's got, I don't know, 2 inches of bristles or 1.5 inches of bristles on there to see how that goes. One of our goals is we want to be able to have the spindexer spin, even if the balls don't move, because the shooter's not running yet. We don't want to try to run that spindexer and then have something bind up and cause something to break. So that's sort of one of our key requirements here is we need there to be enough slippage that the spindexer can kind of run. And then there was a lot of talk at the end of the meeting about how we need to be able to kind of quick reverse or do an agitate like a washing machine or something like that to be able to jostle the balls to get them rolling if it does seem like they get stuck. Getting stuck seems to be the biggest problem. I'd love to hear other people that are thinking about Spindex. Did you have jams? Did you find a way to overcome those jams? Anybody else have any thoughts on that as long as we're on this topic? Carly, thank you for bringing this up. This is a really great topic.
I can show a little bit more about Spindexers based on what Team 2530 did over the last week. I can probably show some videos if that's okay.
Go for it. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we managed to rig up a prototype. It culminated in us mounting a Spindexer to our robot Thwerb, as well as an index, or not an index, an intake. Here's kind of the basic design we went with. Sorry if that's loud. Yeah. So that's what we tested. We just used a Kitbot wheel. For the most part is what we use for our wheel because we don't have 6-inch Coulsons on us. It worked pretty well. We tried putting a Rev Robotics flap wheel on top just to disturb some of the feel that's on top there. Let's see if I can get a good photo of what our Spindexer looks like that. That's what it looks like at its base. It did a pretty good job. It usually got all the fuel so long as the fuel was knocked into it. We also did intake testing on that. And we also surfed some fuel, so. So yes,
Luke-
very
Luke-
jank there. Many
Luke,
boxes.
one of the things I really
regulars.
like about your Spindexer photo there, this one here, yeah, this one. One of the things I really like about this is you sort of put a roof over top of where the balls exit. I think that's really important. I think that we tried to like have a student hold their hand down there and like hold a piece of plastic, or I think it was a piece of plastic, but maybe it was cardboard, to try to keep a roof over the exit so that balls were not going to bind up right at the place where it runs into the shooter. So I like that. That was something that we found was very helpful.
Yeah, we didn't have too many issues with our intake spitting balls up out of the hopper. I would say the roof is actually a bit of a artifact of me being too lazy to cut it off with a knife. So, which I believe is why that is there. It's just folded over. But yeah.
I see also that you've got a diverter. So you've got a straight diverter out of the chute, so your balls can't continue around in a circle. Did you try it without the diverter?
Oh, I believe we did initially. And some of the things we saw was just balls would usually, not forever, usually be 1 or 2 cycles that they would get stuck in the infinite loop. Occasionally that would involve a ball hitting something at a very high speed, which would damage our prototype. So we didn't test it that much more than that.
We had a diverter on our Spindexer, and I don't think they took it out yet, but one of our tests is to see what if we take the diverter out, since it comes off at a tangent, like yours does too. Yours comes off at a tangent. So since it comes off at a tangent, do you really need a diverter or not? So that's one of the tests that we're planning to do too. Is to try with a diverter. We already have tried it with a diverter, and then we want to try without a diverter to see if that helps balls that would otherwise get jammed up kind of move around and come around on the second pass. Yeah. Not really sure about that. Is anyone else doing a Spindexer, or are they doing a different type of hopper feeder system, indexer system?
For those who don't know, what would a diverter be?
Luke, can you bring your photo back up again and show the?
I can do that.
The diverter.
Oh, is it that like wooden plate?
It's this wooden board right here. Actually, there's not just the purpose of stopping the infinite loop from happening. It also does provide opportunity to run a belt and potentially power that center wheel, just to put it right behind that diverter.
Oh, sure. That makes a lot of sense. I think that the assumption on our side is we're just going to run it from underneath of kind of the hopper. But that's true. If you have that diverter in there, then you've got a place for the belt to go. That's
underneath you lose hopper space.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you do a belt, you're gaining a little bit more volume for the balls, for the fuel.
Yep. But now, do you have something on the top to hold that axle all the way through?
That's one of the questions we've been working on. Part of the thing is it'd probably be supported underneath with some kind of 1/2-inch tall extrusion, and then we'd probably want to support it with 2 bearings, but currently on the top, the plan is to not have much.
Got it. What's everybody else doing for a hopper? Does anyone else have a plan?
I'm from 4632. We haven't really worked on a hopper, but this year we're trying out more actual prototyping. So this year we're able to take 2 dowel type of metal and put 2 wheels to figure out what type of shooter we want to do.
So for Ashby, well, we are still playing around with 2 ideas. If we want to be a strictly a snow blower robot, and then that would mean you just be a 1 streamline, go intake it, and 1 straight through to your shooter, and that wouldn't leave any room for much of a hopper. If you wanted to make the system work fast, so then you avoid ball being stuck, jammed somewhere. That's something we're playing around still with, but we had the weather kind of interrupted we didn't have practice yesterday, so that was a big loss. after you cancel practice and then you look out the window and it's like, we could have still made it, but too late now, That was kind of the day we had yesterday. So this week we kind of we have a lot of work ahead of us this week in deciding if we want to just do something like a strip, through and through, or create a hopper, system that's, nothing too elaborate, but something to carry the few balls. We're gonna want to be that support robot that sits in the neutral zone for the most part. So, that's a thought for now.
For discussion, I was kind of curious, those who are playing with the Spindexer concept, how do you feel like you're getting your throughput to comparing to a bot that's going to have a 2 or 3 wide shooter? How are you feeling about that? I think that's something we've been, tracking, curious about.
Looking at some of the Spindexer / washing machine style designs, about the average output or throughput I've seen for that is 7 fuel per second. Our prototype reached those numbers as well. So it's about what we've seen there.
I think that we did a double-barreled shooter for Steamworks in 2017. I think that it seems like that fuel seems so much smaller than the ball that we're shooting this year, and when in fact it's only an inch smaller, although the frame is also smaller, so there's less room. But we did do a double-barreled shooter for Steamworks, and we could only shoot from one location because of the way that we had designed that particular robot, and that really wasn't a problem to put your bumper up against the boiler to shoot the fuel that year. I think the big thing is that our students wanted a turret, and so that's really what pushed us into that single track shooter. Is there anyone who else is doing more than a single shooter? So Megahertz is doing it. No Mythic's doing it. Okay. You guys aren't doing a turret, right? You're doing a static shooter. You haven't figured out how to make a double barrel turret.
If I had figured it out, I'd be telling you.
Okay.
I think we're.
Go
ahead.
A double barrel turret would require a really big turntable, because that's just a bunch of wasted space, because you have like the 2 balls that would have to rotate around each other. It'd be more worth it if you wanted to have 2 shooters. You'd probably need to have 2 turrets, and that's just tough for programming.
Yeah, you'd have to put them in. You have to put 2 turrets in opposite corners, and half of your Spindexer goes one way, and the other half goes the other way.
Yeah.
If you want
just
that
basically building 2 robots.
If you want that double turret, go look at Rush from 2017. They got that working pretty good.
So for those of you thinking of doing double barrel or 2 fuel shooters, have you played around with any, or 3 or 4, although that
or is pushing it.
It's pushing it with the space that you have, but have you done any playing around with adjusting and accuracy other than speed of your flywheel?
More math than practical. Sort of roughing out, like, how much inertia do you need to keep a shooter wheel assembly within like an unacceptable speed range while you're squeezing as many fuel through it as you possibly can, 3 lanes or 2 lanes wide. I think it's doable. I think we're feeling pretty good about it so far. But like it's week 1, so who knows.
So Clay, are you using a belting system then to feed into your shooters? Is that how you're feeding?
I think that's the way it looks right now. It kind of looks like the hopper is gonna. If you look at Cheesy Poof's 2017 Steamworks, yeah, something like that. Hooded shooter, and it's more or less like a conveyor belt across the hopper floor. And I think we're going to end up putting some kind of like lane sorting, essentially ribs, like lane dividers that are like sort of pre-sorting fuel into those 3 lanes as they get taken up into the kicker elevator. We haven't decided on what it's called yet, but the thing that is loading the shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For those of you that are doing a double-barreled shooter, have you run any numbers to see like what if if you're shooting really a lot of fuel in a very short period of time? Have you run the numbers to see if there might be a difficulty with the available fuel that's left on the field? Like there might not be a lot of fuel left on the field if you're picking it up and shooting it that quickly. Or do you have a strategy for what you're going to do if you can't fill your hopper with fuel because you've shot it so quickly? Something like that.
We do have a strategy, and I don't think I get to tell you, but I think that we are intaking 90 degrees offset from our shooter direction. So strafe, at least in some contexts, it's we're able to strafe and shoot, or you know what I mean, like intake and shoot at the same time.
I guess I'd add that if you can somehow get out, this is like in theory, right? If you can get out 15 to 20 a second, 2 cycles in auto gets really attractive. And there's
Yes,
100, there's 200, 150 in the middle, free real estate if you can get them.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to lose auto if you're making that many, but that's a lot of ifs. It's a lot of ifs.
Mm-hmm.
I have found the one photo of the caster chassis that we put together here. Let me share my screen. So I'll show you the CAD first. So this is the, are you able to see it? Yep. Okay. So This is the CAD of the caster chassis that we made. It's just 3/4 inch plywood. Let me get rid of the bumpers here for a moment. Just 3/4 inch plywood and then standard rail box tubing. We made a profile of our MK5s so that we can 3D print a cover so that they kind of screw down in that location so students can get an idea of where they can run their intake or what they got to work around. And the other thing that we did here is we ran 2x4s around the inside so that we can just quickly screw a 2x4 across or screw plywood on there or whatever the students might need to do in order to fasten down a laser cut particle board or HDP board or whatever it might be, so that we very quickly get something on the chassis. We're calling this Cassie the caster chassis. So this is Cassie. And Cassie has currently in our shop has the intake prototype mounted on it. And our shooter group is running the shooter off of the Robo Rio, or I guess it's actually the system core one, or the system core is running our shooter prototype. So we have 2 kind of chassis that we're using. One of them is just this one that's the casters, and the other one is on an actual robot, which is still running an old frame. It's not even being cut down to size yet. And then I can show you a photo, present something else. Let's see here. How do I present this? There we go. And this is what it actually looks like. So we just cut these blocks out on the CNC. This does not have the caps hadn't been 3D printed yet and screwed down. But these casters, if anyone's interested, these are 2-inch casters. Oh, I can't, I'm trying to rotate it as if this was CAD. These casters, I got 24 of them for $35 on Amazon, and they have bearings. I can't believe I found casters with bearings that cheap. But I had big plans for making some little scooter carts or something like that I didn't get to. But now we've got extra casters in case we need them for anything. They're definitely not high speed. They're definitely not high weight, but they work really great for this type of system. So that's what it is. That's what it looks like.
Scott, I'm gonna have to steal a lot of that right back.
Yeah, and the nice thing too with this, again, I'm trying to rotate this as if it was CAD. But you can just, the riser blocks are just 3D printed. So if you want to raise or lower the height of your tubing, you just 3D print different height blocks, and then you can have your frame at different heights. This right now is set up to be, it's within a 16th of what our actual robot frame is, both in length and width, but then also in height.
Cool. Real quick, I've got some photos I'll share of ours, and this is before it was being used, so like there's nothing attached to it, and there's a cat in the photo. Not sorry. Yes, can you see it?
Yep.
Great. It's all 80/20. You can buy cheaper 80/20 from a website called tnuts.com. It's all up to spec. It's a slightly different aluminum, but it's cheaper. Casters, same ground clearance as our last year robot. It's changeable, but we haven't decided to change it yet. And just Axeman casters, right from the surplus store. But very, very beefy. I am going to put some 2x4s on this thing though, because being able to just zip some stuff into it with wood screws is a brilliant idea. That's great, fast prototyping. That's all.
Yeah, I was really encouraged by the fact that Cassie came into the shop and was set down, and within minutes, and we made one bumper. So just on one side, we didn't make a full set of bumpers. We just made bumper on one side. And the students were very quickly like, okay, let's get some 2x4s and zip it into that wood and get our laser cut, our intake mounted on here. So that was really cool. It was great to see.
Mm-hmm. The note for my students this year was to get bumpers onto this thing. So if anybody else is thinking about making one of these things, make it with bumpers right away.
Yep.
As a tangent, we emptied about 5 or 6 tubs of stuff out of our lab that we're never going to use again, which I'll put pictures of on the Minnesota Coaches Slack at some point and see if anybody wants it. I think most of it's junk or stuff people won't want, like sim motors and things like that. Maybe they do. But there is a tub of old wheels, including casters, that I don't think we're ever going to use. And there may be something useful in there if anybody else wants to do something like that. You'd probably have to come to St. Paul to pick it up.
I did see that there was somebody on one of the FRC Facebook groups. I don't even remember which one it is, but she was looking for old field elements and game pieces because she's apparently making an FRC museum. She was looking for the Wheel of Fortune from 2020. The color, excuse me, the color wheel. So I don't know if you got a color wheel, Mark, but there's somebody on Facebook looking for a color wheel. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
No chance. No. Sorry, no color wheel.
So not to sound like the good old TV commercial with the help the poor people, in this impoverished nation, but I've been playing around on just locating some FRC teams that are outside the U.S. I mean, the things like sim motors that we like, oh, I want to go to Neo, Vortex, and, and like we're a young team and we seem to have a bunch of, sim motors sitting around. And I had the thought the other day, it's like, what would it be like for teams in Minnesota to put together and collect some of those things and, find teams like there are in Mexico, close by, places and be like, hey, and something tells me some of those teams will actually be very grateful to have the things that some teams are considering obsolete at this point, because, if you don't have it and something like it shows up, you can make something of it, so something to throw out there, just.
I think that's a really good idea. We'd have to consider shipping, and I guess customs, because those have some components in them that might have questionable materials, but I don't know. But I think that's definitely a great idea to consider.
Maybe that's somebody's impact project right there. I'm just.
Well, let's talk about intake. How many folks are, if anybody here doing a 4-bar, anybody doing just a straight drop down, rotational intake, anybody doing rack and pinion, I'm gonna slide it out. Anybody want to share what they're thinking right now for intake?
I don't have photos, but I think Nomethic is planning on an extending hopper plus extending intake, probably on like drawer slides or something like that.
That's what Team 2530 is as well.
Of course, for expanding intake, yes, that's what we want to do. One thing we have to consider is as we are extending our intake, how to make it go down because the height of the balls is lower than the height of the bumpers. So we might have something with like a curved slot that's going through, or maybe like something to do with different linkages. I don't think we've exactly figured out what we need to do, but something that'll allow it to angle down somehow.
I know Team 4632, where our current plan is doing an in the bumper intake, so this then we can save room, and then because we don't have as much supplies and stuff, that will work well for us.
Nightcrawler, the students are currently looking at pursuing a horizontal slide. I think they're going to try to do a rack and pinion. And they found, I don't even remember what team it was, but it was probably Cheesy Poofs, had a rack and pinion system from years ago that they used. And so I think our team is looking at doing that using two pieces of, I think it's 2 pieces of 1/4 inch polycarb, so that'd be 1/2 inch thick for sturdiness. We're very concerned about taking a hit on the intake, and so that's going to be a major consideration for us, is building something that can take a hit. We're also looking at an expanding hopper. One of the things that worries me about an expanding hopper is reaching inside of someone else's frame perimeter. So I'm very nervous about having a hopper that extends the full 12 inches. I'd much prefer to have a hopper that extends maybe 5 inches. So it should not be possible to reach inside somebody's frame perimeter unless they have a bumper cutout, I suppose. I'm curious to know, for those that are thinking about an expanding hopper, what are your thoughts on how far you're going to extend?
All the way into another robot's chassis, I think, is the plan. Yeah. And back out again. Yeah. I don't know.
With some wires.
With some parts. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, if you're going to go in, you better get something out of it.
How about
That's
hook?
right.
How about hook attached to a Captain Hook? You know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, honestly, we're kind of leaning towards max extension and drive good. I mean,
yeah, I think, there's always been the worry over the years about anything outside the bumper is going to get destroyed. But I have a feeling a lot of teams, I mean, there definitely are going to be teams. And Piper pointed out, we have a bumper cutout. We're going to pull the balls in from the inside. But I think with the footprint of the robot being reduced this year, I think there's going to be a lot of teams with stuff hanging outside the robot. And so it'll be very interesting to see how teams improve the durability of that stuff that's outside the robot.
But that also, if that's the case, though, that's also be a good thing for teams who are going to be like playing bumper bot for defense. Because if you got stuff stuck out your robot too, and you have to be driving around, you want to be careful how you maybe just play interference and not trying to push somebody around, because then you got parts sticking out too.
How about a thumbs up, thumbs down here? How many people think there's going to be a lot of high-speed collisions? Thumbs up if you think there's going to be a lot of high-speed collisions. Wow, everybody seems to think that. I think there might be so many balls on the field that you just can't go very far, very fast without running over a ball. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the field looks like with 500 balls on the field.
Maybe there might just be a lot of high-speed ball surfing.
Yeah, I was about to say, one thing to consider is that the balls might not let you stop. So then, because if you go over the bump and ball surf, it might be hard to stop, and you might go slamming into another robot.
I'm just wondering.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm just wondering about the feeding frenzy that might occur in the neutral zone, and that's where I'm envisioning a lot of those collisions.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because the fuel is very slippery, but how will that last after 10 matches?
Has anybody managed to damage the skin on those foam balls yet? Like,
I've tried to
to the degree that
intentionally.
Crescendo notes got damaged?
I try to intentionally claw it with my fingers, and it actually was still some abuse from me. So I mean, that's just my fingers. So who knows? The motor's spinning faster than I can, So, but I thought of all that too.
They definitely seem to hold up better than the notes from Crescendo.
We've managed to take some of the tape off with our shooter.
I can also say that they turn blue compliant wheels yellow or green.
Yeah, the outlaws that we had in 2020 did that as well. We had lemon zest everywhere.
There was the dust all over the field from the balls.
So back to collisions, I think there are going to be a ton of collisions in the middle of the field, but I don't know that they're going to be high speed. However, your robot full of fuel is going to weigh 50 pounds heavier than it did empty. And so maybe it's not about velocity, maybe it's about mass. Yeah, I think there are going to be a lot of collisions, but I don't know that it's going to be as bad as the full across the field that we saw with Crescendo or we saw with Steamworks. That was a lot of fully across the field. The thing with Steamworks that might come into effect here too is that with Steamworks there was a lot of really bad visibility that year. The under the hub seems to be maybe easier to see through, so maybe there won't be a lot of middle of the field high speed collisions because you can't see where you're going, like there was with Steamworks. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff outside the robot, and there are definitely going to be a lot of collisions.
And a game piece fired down the field for passing or stealing, whatever you want to call it, has a lot of potential energy. Stuff's gonna break off.
That's true too. Yeah, if you've got stuff that's outside your robot, wiring harnesses and whatnot, drag chain. You imagine taking a half-pound ball to your drag chain at velocity, that you might end up a lot of drag chain parts all over the field.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
So anyone thinking that there will be a team or two out there trying to still, shoot somewhere from the kitty corner into the hub from the neutral zone? Because when you look, I will share my screen quickly. When you look at the field, there is that April tag that you might be able to pick up to let me see, share tab. Okay, there you go. So when you look at the field, right, somebody can come. Is it possible for someone to come over here and try to go over there, or also from the other side, from this side too, because there's another April tag on the other side too. For if I'm not mistaken, these are April tags, right? Like, oh, sorry for making you dizzy there. Right here.
Don't you have to be on your side of the bump to shoot into your hub?
Oh, is that a rule that said you have to be?
Yes, you must be within your alliance zone, otherwise you
Okay.
are your foul for every ball you sink in.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Well, your bumpers, you only have to have your bumpers partially inside the alliance zone, so you could sit like half under the trench and have a corner out touching that blue line.
Or if you really want to flex on the bump, shooting on the bump.
All right. How do I stop this?
I think that video. Sorry, Jeremiah, did you have more to say? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I'm trying to stop this.
Should be down at the bottom. I think there's a. There you go.
I was just going to say that video that Luke shared earlier of us when we were testing out how the robot went over the over the bump, and we had the balls. We didn't plan. Well, we did plan that one. We put all the balls on the other side of the bump to see how the robot would respond, and we just like coasted over them. And then since then, I've just had nightmares of running into other robots unexpectedly, because you can't control your robot when you're coasting on top of a bunch of fuel sitting there, and invading the frame perimeter of other robots and getting major fouls, and thinking about what that means for protecting our own innards on our robot as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of your robot's going to just be one big box full of yellow balls. So I think you'll have a lot of outside perimeter. But I think around your shooter, where you're going to probably, it depends on it. If you have a turret, you're clearly going to have a drag chain or something similar to that, where you've got something that's may or may not be very well protected. I think it's going to be important to protect those types of things. Even for somebody who might be shooting maybe over your intake and into the inside of your robot. Like even your hood's going to have to, if you have a turret and you have a hood, that hood's going to have to be able to take a pretty serious impact. It's going to have to be pretty sturdy, because that'll be the highest point on your robot, likely, probably, unless you have a climber sticking up, which again, you might have a motor up there, or you're going to have something, potentially a sensor or something up there that needs to be protected so it doesn't take a hit.
Has anyone's students looked at either of the simulators out there for this season? The XRC is the one I've seen clips of. As soon as any robot contacts that big cluster of fuel in the center of the field, it's just like, it's everywhere. Like, the likelihood that half the robots are going to be on top of fuel for the majority of the match seems like simple. It's very crowded.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to watch It's always interesting to watch week 1 and week 2, especially week 1, where it's like everyone's out there trying to get the feel of things, and I think a lot of us will learn from week 1 and 2 and make some adjustment before the later regionals.
Do we have any programmers on the call? Any students that are on the programming side of the robot? I'd be curious to know if the programmers have any input on what they see as important for either the robot design or robot strategy. If we got any folks that want to chat about that. Every year, what we do for this first week while the build team is running their design prototypes is our programmers are thinking about optimal auto paths. Optimal is the score in auto. We try to put that out front as early as possible, so that if our programmers identify having an intake on one side and a shooter on the other, or vice versa, or something to that effect, that feedback gets to the build team as early as possible. Sort of optimize your design for auto. And there hasn't been a lot of discussion about that since we're going to do a turret. So we haven't had a lot of kind of feedback of, for auto, it'd be optimal shooter versus intake. But what I am interested in, though, is the auto climb. I think that our team will probably want to be able to always auto climb, unless we have two partners that can, at least one, but preferably two partners that could auto climb. I'm wondering if teams are talking about auto climb yet, or we haven't talked about climb at all tonight. Well, let's talk about that. What are people thinking for climb right now? I will share that Nightcrawler is thinking all we care about is L1 at the moment. And we think we're sort of reserving some space for a more complicated climber. We think we have a spot to put one if we can come up with a decent design. But for right now, we're thinking primarily is we need to be able to climb L1 and auto. So it needs to be an easy or simple climber to be able to do that. And then we'll figure out how much more complicated we can get after we know what our shooter looks like. Go ahead. Everybody's got their hands up. This is awesome. Good topic.
I'll go quick. I know Mythic is gonna aim for L1 climb and an auto climb. So reversible L1 climb, and either the same for teleup, or drive really fast at it and get ramped up onto it, but we're planning on shooting until the last second. So
Team 4632, our goal is to climb during auto and just do level 1 at least. And we're hoping to have that on the back of our bot. And then Scott, to answer your previous question when it came to the programmers, I myself isn't one, but I work closely with them because I'm one of the co-captains. And their goal is to have a way of aiming the turret at least, and that's their current focus.
looks like Purity's up next, and then Ransom.
2530 is kind of thinking the same thing as everyone else. We want to have an L1 auto and an L1 climb, and we're thinking of doing the L3 climb later on.
Same thing I was going to say.
Well, since we have not ever had a successful end-game climb robot, it makes sense for us to let's climb that first round, and if we nail it consecutively all the time, then maybe our second regional we can be like, hey, let's come up with a secondary climber that can go up and higher. But there's no reason trying to aim for the sky when you can't catch the first round yet. So
For if you were asking about build wise based on Otto's perspective, for Team 2530, well, one thing I think for the design would be the climber on the opposite side of the turret, so that the turret would be closer, so that you could possibly shoot easier while climbing. So that's like one input that I would have.
Anybody going to try to build a robot that flips upside down so just the bumpers are over the L2 bar?
Absolutely, yes.
Brian, are you serious? You're going to do an inverted climb?
7850 has talked about it.
On 2530, me and some other alum on kickoff kind of did the math and figured it was possible, but God, I wouldn't be happy if I felt like that.
Oh man. Yeah. That's the thing that scares me the most about the L3 climb is that robot falling onto that robot. No matter how it's up there.
Hey, quick question. Is there any limit on how far the robot can extend below the bumpers? Or is that included in the 30 inches?
Hold on, let me find it. G410 says that you can't push off of the floor to lift your bumpers up.
I will say on the inverted climb, a lot of our students are very big fans of doing the inverted climb. We've run some sort of initial type of concepts. I don't know why my camera's all weird. We've run some initial type of concepts on this inverted climb, and our higher priority is to be a short bot. So being a short bot and getting something up on the end of that pole to do that inverted climb is really tricky. Plus, realistically, I think it's got to be steel, so that's a lot of weight that you're adding to your robot to do that in order to have the right torque that you'd have to have and not bend everything when you're flipping upside down. I don't know. It's really hard. Somebody's obviously going to do it with a short bot. We started down this rabbit hole, and I think we spent over an hour talking about trying to figure out how to do an inverted climb as part of our design meeting. And I think we got to the point saying, okay, we know about how much space it would take up. We have no idea how heavy it would be. It's a lot of space. It's a lot of weight. Let's just focus on an L1 auto for now. And hopefully, if we can come up with an idea, it would fit in the spot that we have for it.
I'll add something onto this how are we going to climb question. Are you considering doing a central climb or a side climb on the outer rungs?
You want to give us a thumbs up if you're going to do a central climb, and a thumbs down if you're looking at climbing on the outside? it looks like we have more outside climbs than inside climbs, but we do have some folks inside. Chris is contemplating. Yeah, I'm very curious too for those that are climbing up the face versus the side. Why? What are you choosing one way or the other? Why are people picking one versus the other?
Well, if we are going for L1, as we think we are, um, and we're trying to, that's what we use our quote unquote Cassie for, to come up with a nice frame size to be able to get in there and during L1 auto. So that's the goal. If we do that, that's you want to do that in the middle, will be easier for us, because your target is right behind the middle there, and so that would make more sense. So if we can do that and then do tally up, end game L1 in the same middle, that'd be great. I mean, idealistically speaking.
Just going based off like how our conversations have gone. We haven't really talked about what area we're gonna climb in, but it sounds like we're gonna go more central, possibly on the outside, or like a mix of both. We haven't really fully discussed it yet.
Oh, and my other mentor, he's the guy that's in charge of the climb. He's actually thinking about end game to actually climb on the outside, but with the possibility of climbing in the middle if we're going to do L1 auto. But he's saying just trying to create a system that will be feasible for multiple robots to hang on to that that bottom rung there if that needs to be the case.
It's Chris 5464 mentor. I know our team is looking at doing a auto L1 high priority wish list is if it can go hand over hand and climb up the ladder, but they're looking at doing two climbers in a box, and individually motorized. Not sure if they have any CAD on that. I think Daryl, he's our design lead. I think he's on. A while ago, he had mentioned that he had some CAD that he could share, but I don't know if he's still on or not. I know he was in charge of the intake and working on a 4-bar linkage, I think 3 rollers, but I don't want to speak too much on that because I'm not well versed. So yeah, definitely trying to climb L1 during auto towards the outer edge for maximum team space.
The night trailer's currently looking. Our auto climber, I think we're going to come in from the end. That's where we are at right now, is coming in and getting over that pipe and then lifting ourselves up a little bit. So our L1 climber will be an end of the tower climber off the end of the pole. Assuming that we get it to work. I mean, that's the plan right now.
As a whole, Team 2530 is still a little bit undecided on what exactly we want our climber to be. But personally, I would prefer that our auto L1 climber, assuming we have separate, is a outer climber.
I think the teams that can figure out how to climb the face are going to be in high demand, because then you could get 3 robots up on the tower. So for those that can figure out how to climb the face, good for you, because I think that'll help a lot for maximizing your climbs. Even if you only have 3 L1s, that's still really good compared to just having 2 on the outsides. I think one of the interesting things that I think is discussing here is that I don't remember who it was. Somebody said we're shooting till the end, the last second. Uh, Whoever that was. I think that's definitely going to be the playoff strategy. Is that you're not going to climb to L3, and you might climb to L1, but only if you can do it in a couple of seconds. What I think will be interesting is that, well, it also depends on if they change the ranking point requirement at champs. So, 2 auto L1s and 2 teleop L1s get you the ranking point. I suspect somebody brought it up saying they'll probably change that for champs, and that likely could be true. So you might need to have 3 teleop L1 climb in order to get that ranking point or get up to L3. It'll be very interesting to see how climb strategy evolves the more teams that can get onto L1 and auto.
I know my team has made a joke about just climbing and still shooting if we can aim right.
I don't think it's a joke. I mean, if you got 40 balls in your hopper, why stand still and shoot them if you can shoot them while you're climbing?
Right. No, Mythic's
Or-
going to climb lined up with the hub, and even with a fixed shooter, you can dial in a shot and finish emptying out your hopper while you're climbing.
If we're able to, and we actually have stuff in our hub and we're able to, that's something that we're hoping to do even during like auto if we can.
The other thing with that is if you can empty out your hopper, pick up a few more on your way, and then shoot those as you're climbing. So I think it's a real thing to look at.
What'll be real interesting is somebody who climbs inverted upside down and they're still shooting, making them. I don't think
that would be amazing.
Now you're talking. That's just crazy enough to work.
Hey, if you bounce them off the floor hard enough,
If you make a spherical hopper and you spin that sphere really fast, all the balls will make their way out into your shooter.
Yeah, that's why I come here for these ideas.
For location wise of our climber, we're hoping to have it on the back if like distribution will work in our favor.
Yeah, right now we're working on a side one that completely on the side L3, but there's just so many physics problems that I don't know. But like we're seriously like considering like just cutting. I don't know, I guess for all teams out there, unless you're actually trying to rank 1 or 2, it's just the L3 is just not that attractive if you're just trying to play well. And there's like the other logic of like, you need these bonus RP to rank 1 or 2 or top 8, but also just like not losing by scoring a lot of fuel is a pretty good way to do that too. So it's just really making sure we don't fall in the trap, at least for our team, of like we spent so much time getting this L3 to work and now we're scoring 50 less fuel a match because all the effort went into that.
I think the irony of this is I think that an L3 climb is going to be most important week 1 when people did not have time to work on their autos. And it's going to be the least important towards the end of the season. And so the hardest thing to do is going to be the most important for week 1. And that's just really ironic to me.
Well, the thing we said on Thursday at our last meeting was, well, if you have a hopper that you can take in, 20 some balls, and you can shoot those all, in the hop and then make an L1 climb, that's way valuable than trying to make an L3 climb and you don't even get past L2. And so, it's just, and then you haven't shot anything. So, and it's all good when we talk about these scenarios. There's another thing when the sound effect and whatever sound effect you choose is going on, like a nuclear facility for a meltdown. It's different. 30 seconds can go down so quick, like, geez, where did the time go?
There has been more than one year where a significant part of the game was completely ignored by most teams, and maybe that's what this is going to be for this year's game.
I have a question for people or for teams off the topic of climbers. Who's going over the bump versus the trench?
Nightcrawler is planning on doing the trench as our primary means of getting from one side to the next.
Same with inconceivable. We just think the risks of crowd surfing, odometry getting messed up, losing balls, time, like losing time and getting stuck are just like not make it like off the bump, make it well worth to lose just like 8 inches. Plus, it's easy to add an extra 8 inches of hopper rather than taking away 8 inches once we've already designed the robot.
Well, but the answer to that question too also kind of go in hands with what do you want to do? Do you want to be a neutral zone robot most of the time, pretty much most of the game time until end game? If that's the case, then you don't have to worry about the maximum height. Time to climb, you just, go over the bump and go do your thing. But if you are going to be going back and forth, or depending on team, alliance strategies, if you're going to have one robot going back and forth or 2 robots shooting, well, it's kind of hard to say at one point or the other, unless, some you can still decide hard yes or no, but that's just my thought.
My biggest concern about the bump is that it is so easy to defend against. All you got to do is park a robot on the other side of it. Like, so far, it seems, at least from our testing, that you gotta kind of full send it going over that bump. It's slick enough that you can't slowly, carefully creep over it. You got to kind of go Dukes of Hazzard on it. And if there's a robot parked on the 5 side of that bump, you're going into their bumpers, or you're going over their bumpers, right? Or there's a high risk of it. So, and with all that said, we're going to go over the bump on No Mythic.
Clay, I find that interesting that you said right away that, it's easy to defend, because I was going to speak up about the trench, because
also easy.
The same, right, there's nowhere to spin around or dodge or anything.
Right.
I think the advantage of the trench, though, is that you can potentially plow right through them, where you have a chance of going over their bumpers on the bump.
Sure.
So I'd be much more concerned about trying to push somebody away, because I'd be afraid that I'd land on top of their robot, versus in the trench, I'd be more willing to try to push somebody away, or at least I'm going to attempt it.
If you're sitting there defending the trench, and if we are, and you come in and we're sitting still, and you make contact with us, would you be the one doing the pinning?
My
Both
concern is
robots
going over
have
the
a
bumpers.
path. Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
go
I
ahead.
was going to say both robots have a path in a direction. A pin would require no movement allowed. So if you're just sitting in the middle of the trench, hand gestures aren't working without the camera on. Sorry. But if you're just sitting in the middle of the trench, you can still back up, so you're not pinned. Or the other robot can just still back up, so you're not pinned. You're just stopping progress in the direction you want to go, not movement as a whole.
Okay.
One thing to consider when defending through the trench, if the robot defending that has their hopper full of fuel, they're another like 50 pound, probably not 50 pounds. They could be 50 pounds if they have a really big hopper, heavier, and that's kind of really hard to push against, even on a flat surface. And you can't really get that 50 in your own alliance zone.
No, that's a great point, Carly. I think what I'm most interested with the idea of defending crossing the line is I wonder how many bots will actually cross the line. If this becomes like the end of Crescendo, where the entire match is just a feeding strategy, if robots cross the alliance line once and they live in the neutral zone the rest of the match, and the idea that defending the line just means you got to stop them from getting over there once, because they're never going to leave once they're inside until the end game. So I think there's a ton of opportunity for this game, the way this game is played, to evolve from week 1 to week 6. It'll be really interesting to see what the evolution of where robots spend their time, where that ends up being.
I'm picturing an Einstein field where there's one, maybe 2 robots parked in their alliance zone at a prearranged spot or spots, and two other robots sweeping back and forth in the neutral zone, picking up as many balls as they can and relaying them into the hopper of that shooter bot that's just constantly streaming into the hub. I really want to see it.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to have an adjustable shooter so we can either shoot or feed. So we could serve either one of those roles. The other thing I was going to say about the trench versus the bump is that if you have an intake out in front of your robot, you really don't want to go over the bump. So that means turning, or that just makes things more difficult if your intake is in the front. I mean, I can obviously put the intake on a different side. You can go over it backwards if your intake's in front, but it does make things a little more complex.
And
It just extending the length of your robot and going over the bump makes things more difficult.
If your intake's attached to your hopper and it's extended and you're coming back loaded, you can't retract it.
So we've got about 15 minutes left here in the call, and there was something I wanted to bring up before we ended here. How many folks have been doing a lot of human player practicing? Anyone? No, really.
Well,
Lisa,
I will say, Scott, that one of our drive team candidates has built a prototype cardboard hub at his house and has taken shots. So I'm aware of this and impressed. And we did test out a few shots when we set up the field this past weekend, but I won't, not a serious set of 3-pointers going on, but trying.
we've been trying to do 10, actually on Saturday, I was there 30 minutes early, and I told the students, anybody who wants to come a half an hour early and just practice human player, they're welcome to do that. And so we usually have a pretty decent line of students that are waiting for their turn to shoot 5 or 10 balls to see how they do. I actually think human players are going to be majorly influential in this game. I think that you'll see a strategy where you don't want anyone to take those balls from the human player because you want to have basically a fourth shooter. Now I'll admit that I played basketball in high school and I play a lot of basketball with my son, but I did not find it difficult at all to be able to score 80 to 90% of the balls I was throwing into the hopper. And so I think we're going to see a lot of students that with, practicing every week, going to have a very high throughput of reliability of scoring from the human player. I think it's going to be a big influence. I think teams that spend some time having their human player practice, it's going to pay dividends.
How fast do you think a human can shoot? Or what's your take? More than 1 seconds?
I think that you could probably get 15 off during the auto as just one player, but can't you have all 3 human players firing away during the autonomous period?
My interpretation was that with enough rearranging of your drive team, you could have 9 human players chucking balls at the same time.
That was also my understanding, that you could have anybody who's on the drive team except for the coaches. My understanding was all of them can go chuck balls.
And technician. Well, no technicians.
Oh yeah, technician. Yeah, because they're not back there during the match. Yep. So anyway, I think that all 24 of those balls are going to leave that corral during auto, and I think the optimal strategy is going to have humans doing it.
I think, especially in playoff, when ranking point, like the threshold doesn't really matter anymore, that the human players will be in very high demand, because now when you want to secure the balls, you're bringing them back and shuttling them back to your human player. That's another way to secure your fuel cell. and because if someone's in your zone, in your alliance zone, shooting it back in the neutral or back in the other area, that's one way to keep that also, safe from being stolen too. So that was a thought I had.
How do you envision the fuel getting to the human player after auto? If they're all shot, that means somebody is shuttling them back to the outpost, right, for the human player to shoot them somewhere. Do you think that's going to be a big part of the game? So you think that some team is going to devote a lot of time to shuttling fuel back to the outpost for the human player to throw, or?
But see, the thing is, during qualification matches, I don't think that's going to play a big factor because a robot can probably shoot faster than a person can probably let it off. But in playoff, where you don't need to make that 360 ball threshold anymore, comes into focus. Keeping it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a robot feeding back into the depot or whatever the human place, or just feeding it back to them, to having a reverse intake, giving the ball back to them.
That is also something you could do during when your hub is inactive. And I know my team, once we're finished building our hub, we're gonna have our human player shoot whenever he can.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably how. I think there's two ways that balls are going to get into the human player during teleop. I think one is the balls are just going to naturally collect in the corner of the field, and when you run over to pick up balls, you're just going to end up pushing some through to the human player for that corner. And I think the other way is you're in the inactive period, you're the designated scorer. The other two balls are out. The other two robots are out in the middle, feeding balls back. So you go load up a hopper. You give it to the human, you chuck those into the human player zone, and then you load up a second hopper ready to score as soon as the active period flips on for your alliance. So again, I think this is another one of those areas where we'll see a lot of evolution in the game as week 1 to week 6 happens. I'm very curious to see how the game evolves in this area. Speaking of the yellow balls, I saw something on Chief Del. One of my students were pointing out on Chief Delphi, people were talking about that the kit apart's yellow balls and the anti-mark balls for the pre-order have different hardness on the outside skin. And I can confirm for the balls that we pre-ordered, they are definitely softer. I don't know that it's going to make that much of a difference, but they definitely compress in more on the outside, so maybe a half to a quarter of an inch. No, probably not a half. You'd have to really press it hard to get a half, but you can definitely tell that the ball has a lot of density to it, and it's not like it's a squish, a stress ball. We'll have to wait for champs, then the balls will be really super soft. It'll be the opposite of crescendo, but there definitely is a difference, and we don't know yet if it's going to make any difference with your compression on your shooter or not. We suspect not, because it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. But it is a little concerning that they're noticeably different.
I guess I didn't notice any difference between ours, but now I want to check.
Yeah, I did not notice it at first, and then I explicitly went and said, wait a minute, is there really a difference? By the way, this is a tip that I gave somebody else, and they were very appreciative, so I'll share it here. When we opened our balls, we numbered the kit aparts balls 1 to 10, and then all of our extra balls, we numbered them 11 through whatever. And that wasn't necessarily to divide kit aparts from the anti-mark balls, but it was more of when we're shooting, if we see some ball go all wonky, we want to reshoot that ball. We want to know what ball that was and reshoot it and see if that was an inconsistency in our shooter, or if that ball has like its center of gravity is way off to the side. So I would say number your balls. That way, when you're checking shooter consistency, if you find that a couple of your balls are always inconsistent, you'll be able to kind of isolate whether it's a variance in your shooter or a variance in the ball.
Do you know, is there a way to identify the anti-mark from the kit apart?
I did not look close enough at them.
We didn't mark ours. We never even thought of that. So,
well, I would still say number them right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
then as you're shooting them, if one goes real crazy, you can say, hey, go get 38, bring 38 back. We need to shoot that one again and see if it flies straight the second time.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
But you know, now you've got a fun little scavenger hunt game of see if you can find the kid apart balls.
Well, hopefully it's not like the crosshatch algae issue we had last year.
Yeah, the variance in game pieces has been. I know that First HQ has been frustrated with that too. I don't think it's that significant. Now, if it continues to trend this way for the next shipment, and then if Champs has to, I think these balls are going to survive the regionals pretty well, though. I don't know that they're going to have to do an emergency shipment for Champs or middle of the season. So hopefully they have all the balls they need, and they're not going to have to order anymore. And the density of the balls will be set, and we can rely on them. They definitely were a little different, but again, I don't think it's going to be big enough to matter. At least right now, I don't think it is. We haven't done enough testing to know if our 1 through 10 balls will shoot differently than our 11 through whatever the number was.
Is the size, like the nominal uncompressed size, essentially the same?
I am pretty sure those are identical. I did not test that, but I think the post that one of our students shared basically said, yeah, nominally the diameter is the same. But again, if these balls are a little bit squishier, the diameter might actually get reduced a 16th and an 8th as they get really beat up. So it's hard to say. It's interesting that these balls kind of retain the dimple. So like you take them out of the box and they're dimpled where they were touching into the ball, and they sort of retain that dimple for quite some time. I don't know if it's forever or not, but I feel like as we compress these balls to our shooter, are they going to turn into eggs? And because they're just not springing back well, that'll be interesting to see too. I know that the balls that we had in 2020, the yellow balls, which were much, much softer, and even the rapid react balls, after you shot them enough, they wobbled through the air because they were oblonged from getting compressed over and over, it seemed.
Oh. Is anybody buying a full field's worth of balls? I mean, aside from, I assume Nightcrawlers, because you all have a field.
No, we only bought a 6 of a field. We're going to ask people to bring balls to week 0. This will be a question that'll probably come up, and many of you on the call are covering the Nightcrawler thing. What we did for Steamworks, because again, we had hundreds and hundreds of balls, we just counted the balls that you brought, and we just made sure you took that many balls away. We didn't make everybody run around the field and find the balls that were marked with their number. So we're not going to be mean like that. We'll just make sure everybody leaves the same number that they came with. And hopefully we'll have enough. I think we'll have enough for week 0. I think week 0 will be fine. We have 80, whatever the 1/6 is, and if we can have people bring, another couple hundred, that'll probably be enough for week 0. The only ones that I know that bought a full field worth of balls is the ARC field up in Duluth, and I think Becker may have also bought a full field's worth of balls. But they also do Shamrock Showdown in March, and they're usually doing the conference match and a state. Last year they did a state practice day for those attending state, so they have need for lots of balls. So that doesn't surprise me if they did in fact buy a full field.
I don't know if either of the Twin Cities hubs are buying full fields, or if they're just doing what Nightcrawler will do for week 0. I should know. I don't.
Yeah, it's expensive. I think they spent. I think Doug posted that for Duluth they spent $3,000 on balls, and then it turned out to be like 300 pounds. So now you got to figure out how in the world they're going to haul 300 pounds with their field when they move the field. So they're building road cases equivalents, type thing just for game elements.
Yeah, you bring an extra robotics trailer. That's just you open the back door and it's just a sea of balls rolls out of it.
It's a pickup truck load of fuel, right? I think that basically is equivalent.
A cubic yard of fuel.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're coming to the end here. Anything else? Students, you want to have the final word tonight? Anybody want to share or ask a question? Final thought of the night. Okay, then I'm going to give you a plea for folks. We're running out of topics. Oh, Carly's got something. Please, Carly.
I'm glad there's no school tomorrow.
Actually, I am glad we can't get in the building tomorrow because I only got half of my list done today that I needed to get done before robotics the next time we meet. So anyway, good comment. That's a good way to close it out. I am going to ask for a plea for teams to please submit topics. We are running out of topics that are prearranged. We went all the way from September until I think next week, and I never had to scramble to find a topic. And now is the time when I need some help. So if your team is interested in either giving a presentation, or they have a topic they'd really like to talk about and they just want to lead that discussion, you do not have to present. You don't have to have a plan or a slide deck or anything like that. I believe that if you say, hey, we really want to talk about how you're training your new captains, or we really want to chat about whatever it is that you're interested about, whether you need all the information or you have some information to share, please consider signing up for a topic and leading that discussion. No matter how little or how much information you have ready to go to share. I really always appreciate when somebody else takes the lead. So you can always, you can find the place to sign up at team2052.com/roundtable, and there'll be a link towards the top of the page for signing up to host a topic. All right, with that, thank you everyone. I really appreciate you joining tonight and look forward to seeing everyone next week. Have a great night.
That's it for this week's FRC Roundtable. Join us live all season long, every Sunday night. Visit the website at team2052.com/roundtable to sign up for weekly invites. In the meantime, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next week.